Classical Ayurveda centers its chronobiology on a single, mathematically precise verse that compresses the biological timing of the human body into one line. This is the 8th verse from the first chapter of the Ashtanga Hridaya Sutrasthana. The verse constructs its logic around 4 specific temporal pillars that continuously govern human existence. The first is the total human lifespan, or Vyas. The second and third operate on a daily circadian scale, the cycle of the day, or Aha, and the night, or Ratri. The fourth pillar identifies a localized microscopic cycle, the breakdown of a single meal, known as Bhukta. By locking these 4 timelines together, the text treats time as a unified physical framework that scales from an 80-year life down to the 2-hour digestion of a lunch. The mechanism driving this framework is the phrase Kramat Yata Sankyam, which establishes a rule of strict respective sequence. This rule generates a precise 4x3 grid. The 4 temporal pillars, age, day, night, and digestion, sit on the y-axis. The 3 stages of time, end, middle, and beginning, occupy the x-axis. Vata, listed first among the doshas, corresponds to the first temporal marker, the end, or anta. Pitta, listed second, maps to the middle, or madhya. Kapha, listed third, maps to the final marker, the beginning, or adi. This matrix serves as a predictive tool, dictating exactly when each physiological force holds primary control over the system. Commentators like Arinadatta analyzed the Paninian grammar of the root verse to prove the nature of this temporal control. They focused on the suffix ga within the compound word anta madhyadigas. By applying the Paninian rule, enya trapi drishyate iti da, the commentary decodes the mechanical action this suffix described. Ga indicates active movement. The doshas do not merely exist during these times, they travel into and fill these temporal zones. This surge marks a kapha kala, a period of natural provocation that a physician must account for during diagnosis. This provocation is observable across the first temporal pillar, the human lifespan, or Vyas. The commentator Himadri defines age not as a count of years, but as Sharira Parinama. Sharira Parinama is the biological, sequential transformation and continuous modification of the body's tissues. Childhood represents the beginning of this transformation. Because the body is engaged in heavy tissue building, this era is the natural domain of kapha. Youth and adulthood form the middle. The body relies on peak metabolic vigor and thermal energy, placing this period under the control of pitta. Old age is the end of the sequence. Characterized by tissue depletion and desiccation, this environment matches the domain of vata. Aging is a sequenced handoff of metabolic control, moving from kapha to pitta, and finally to vata. This sequence also governs the micro-timeline of digesting a single meal, or bhukta. Arunadatta acknowledges that digestion involves an infinite number of subtle microstages, known as sukshma avastaha. While these microstages exist, Ayurveda isolates only 3 macrostages. The justification for this is upayogitvat, or clinical utility. A physician cannot practically treat these countless microscopic transformations because they entirely lack clear, observable clinical boundaries within the human body's complex system. Ayurveda focuses on these 3 macrostages because they alone manifest distinct, observable clinical actions, or spakarma darshayanti, that can be treated. Sharira Sthana 3/57 tracks 3 stages of avastapaka. In Adyavasta, the sweet, frothy mass provokes kapha. In Madhyavasta, it turns intensely sour and hot, triggering pitta. Finally, in Antavasta, the mass is completely desiccated, leaving a residue that provokes vata. This internal sequence corresponds to the physical experience of post-meal heaviness, following heat, and eventual lightness. If vata dominates old age, does this mean pitta and kapha are absent in the body? The text clarifies that all 3 doshas are vyapin, or universally pervasive through every cell. Even in an 80-year-old body, kapha must still perform its lubricating functions to sustain life. The conflict is resolved by kala vishesha, or temporal predominance. One dosha's amplitude rises significantly during its designated period, while the other 2 maintain a steady baseline. time functions as a period of primary control. The non-dominant doshas are subjugated, but they are never absent. These timings determine daily clinical practice and lifestyle optimization. The matrix identifies the most efficient time to wake up. Waking during the late-night vata period leverages natural motility for elimination. Sleeping past sunrise instead introduces the heavy, lethargic qualities of environmental kapha. In diagnostics, if a patient reports heartburn strictly during the middle stage of digestion, the physician can isolate the issue to a pitta pathology. Medicines are then timed to hit during a dosha's peak kopakala, intercepting the pathology when the dosha is most active. Verse 1.8 of the Ashtanga Hridaya provides the mathematical logic for these repeating scales of time. It shows the microcycle of a single meal mirrors the macrocycle of an entire life, revealing a consistent biological pattern across every level of time.